trains at a time. I put each of those trains with its associated cars into these drawers. And then when I needed to run that train, I would manually bring it over to, I see I didn't label this, this is Seymour Yard on the old part of the layout. And then we would operate, the little switcher would run things back and forth. When the cycle was complete, we would basically work it somewhat backwards almost. So how did this change? Well, two things kind of changed at the same time. I changed to Operations Pro and I also added the new extension. Rather than having a spreadsheet that told me how to go pick cards from a bin and different types of cards, the staging moves just operate as if they're another train. So that same 7 o'clock Monday morning job here says, go to these drawers, pick up these cars, and manually put them over here on the staging yard. Okay, so rather than going to a drawer, then going to the layout, they're just put directly, since we have the new extension, just put them directly over here on the interchange / staging yard. Rather than moving them later from the drawer to the layout, we actually run that as a job. This shows the short arrows here, but this is the transfer train that actually goes the entire length of the layout over to Seymour Yard, rather than just grabbing them out of the drawer and sticking them over here. So that's how life changed once we added the longer shelf. I'm going to take and talk about just some really basic terminology inside of Operations Pro. And I cannot stress
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Does everybody hear us all right?
No, well, now, yes.
It seems there are a fair number of people who have muted themselves. So,
Yeah, I'm hoping that's a picture behind Mr. Carr, because if it's not, it looks pretty cold out there.
yeah, that was a few years ago.
Is that the Hustle Bustle?
Yep. That's
Did you
actually
go?
up in, that's in Duluth.
Did you actually get to see the locomotive?
I did, but not during the winter. I was there in 2009 and got to drive it.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was. Of course, we saw it this year too in St. Cloud, but it was just on static display. So right now it's about -4 centigrade where I am in British Columbia.
Yeah, and what does that translate to in Fahrenheit?
Oh, probably somewhere in the mid-20s.
And down here in the Midwest, it's supposed to be about 8 Fahrenheit on Sunday.
Yeah.
I can hardly wait. Get out
We
and
have
catch some.
an outflow of Arctic air hitting us right now, so the temperature will plummet over the next few days. So,
Yeah, I would imagine in BC, what does that stand for? Below Celsius?
yeah, something like that, yeah. We've actually had a very mild fall, not much rain. And today is the first time we're actually getting much snow.
I imagine you get your fair share, don't you?
Not really. I'm on the south coast and it's pretty mild here. If I were up in the interior, yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Dal Stager. And where I am, it's, well, in American, it's -22. Here, it's about -31.
Mm-hmm. How far north are you?
I'm north of Calgary,
Ah, yes. Okay.
Calgary, Alberta.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a chilly night here, let me tell you.
Our new secretary, Paul O'Neill, he lives just south of Edmonton. So
Oh, yeah. So he would be experiencing the same thing.
he's getting the same thing. Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi, Brian. How you doing? Good.
Well,
Good. There's John Coy. Wondered when he was going to get on here. How you doing, Ron? Good.
It's a nice background picture you got there, Mr. Jordan.
Oh, thanks. It's a little scene from my layout in my basement of the Cascade division of the Great Northern. So,
Sweet.
yeah.
Nicely
Yeah, very
done.
impressive.
Nice picture. Did well.
Yeah. Took me about 2 months to build that trestle. So board by board, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bet. It's a beauty.
Well, there's a HO,
yes, it is.
very nice.
Was that your own creation, or was that something you copied from a book or an instruction sheet or a kit?
So I have the I'm in the Great Northern Railway Historical Society, so I got all the black and white photos and stuff like that, and data sheets and stuff like that it's from Tie Creek, actually.
So you just looked at the photos and you built one.
Well, so I do a little bit backward engineering and stuff like that. So I have an engineering background, so can take the photos and interpolate and stuff like that.
Yeah. I remember the first railroad layout I went to, which is a town not too far from here. I took a buddy of mine over there. We were looking at the massive layout. It's a place, it's Maryville, Illinois. The place is called K10s. And we were in there, and it was just, spectacular layout that fills up a huge Morton building. And the owner was there, and he's walking around, my friend and and I'm pointing out all the stuff to him that I knew about. And he said, "Well, how do you think he built it?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but you don't have to be an engineer to do it." And the owner of the place said, "Well," he said, "it worked out for me because I am an engineer." So, well, there you go. No insult intended.
That's great.
Yeah. So how long have you had your layout up and running, Mr. Jordan?
About 20 years I've been working on this. So it's I'm kind of stuck in like 1920 to 1926 or so, stuck in the Cascade Mountains. So I got like 20 by 30 foot layout. And I try to reproduce as much as I can from that era. So
20 by 30 feet. What do you got? Half the basement taken up? That's the
yeah,
whole basement.
yeah, and it's a good portion of our basement. So
Well, congratulations. That's a monstrous undertaking. You going to give us a tour?
Absolutely.
You going to give us a tour sometime?
well, I'm gonna see what you guys are doing here tonight because this is my first time being on one of these meetings, and I'm kind of interested in seeing how the virtual tour goes. So
Oh, well, I can be a big help to you then, because this is my second time.
Well, you're not alone. This is my first Zoom call with you guys. So,
Well, that's cool, because I mean, let's see, this is one, two, is this the third or this is the third or the fourth one? Anybody?
I think it's the third,
The third. Okay, well, there you
I think.
go. So you get in when you can get in, and then you stick around. I tell you what, I just think it's really great that I've been to the National Model Railroaders Convention in St. Louis. It's been 2 years ago now, I guess it was. And there's just, every railroad under the sun was represented. So you're just running around looking to see if I'm surprised how many people don't wear any kind of logo on their shirts or their ball caps. So to be able to get together and see a bunch of other people in one spot, even if it's only 3 or 4 times a year that all do the same railroad that I do, it's just pretty neat for me.
All right.
Well, unfortunately, during the COVID year of 2021, I got involved in this type of education system, and we put a 17-piece big band on. Everybody was in a different location. It was all pieced together by a professional musician in Philadelphia, and it came out sounding unbelievable.
No kidding.
Excellent.
I do not want to do it again, though, because every time I played my part, I always screwed one thing up, and that was enough to make me do it over again. And after a couple of days, you get tired of it.
I'll bet.
So Gerald, what do you play?
I was bass trombone.
No, really?
I'm a community player at Toledo University, and they never have a bass trombone player. So I've been filling in with them for about 20 years now.
Excellent.
So I play low brass with the Blaskapelle in Wisconsin.
Really?
So I play in all the Oktoberfests and stuff like that. So I play
yeah.
trombone, tuba, baritone,
A lot of fun.
euphonium, and actually recently Alphorn. So
Really?
yeah.
Ah. Well, I'll forever be learning how to play my horn. I've only been at it for about 30 years, but
But
it's still amazing. Pardon?
The important question is, do you finally feel like you're making progress?
Barely. Barely.
Spoken as a true musician.
So I have some.
Go ahead.
I play tenor trombone in a swing band in Washington State.
Cool.
Excellent.
So I have friends who follow the group that I play with, and he's like, "Are you guys going to play in Leavenworth?" I mean, because Leavenworth has the big, German fest or German Oktoberfest sort of
Right.
celebration. So he's like, "You guys going to go play there?" So
Well, if you play your cards right, maybe you can team up with Molly B, and she'll be there to dance with you.
yeah.
Hey, Vince, whereabouts is Wood River located?
I guess you're familiar with St. Louis?
Sure.
Yeah, right across the river.
Okay.
Yeah. There's about I don't know, 8 or 10 communities across the river from St. Louis: Alton, Wood River, East Alton, Collinsville, Maryville, all those. So, we have all the benefits and none of the congestion.
Yeah.
I grew up in St. Louis. I left it in about 1976 and frequently go back to visit neighbors and friends.
You were leaving just a few years after I got here. I got discharged from the Marine Corps in 71 and came back here and met my wife, and I've been here ever since. God knows where my wife is, but I've been here ever since. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. She's upstairs.
I'm
a state away from you. I'm in Overland Park, Kansas. And I have a lot of friends in St. Louis because I'm involved in the Toy Train Collectors Club, which St. Louis folks pretty hard. And my emphasis is everything Great Northern that Lionel ever made. So I'm a three-brailer. I know you guys are going to turn your nose up at that.
No,
Never.
We have a lot of fun. And I grew up on the branch line of the Great Northern between Sioux Falls and Yankton, South Dakota. Does anybody know where that's at?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is my first attempt. A good friend of mine, his name is Mark Jevery. I don't know if that's a Jevery name, rings any bells for the you folks or not, but they've been involved in the Historical Society. His dad passed away. So, but anyhow, glad to be part of this austere group.
Cool.
I'm glad to be a part of it too. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
My name is Jim. I live in Nordman, Idaho, which is about 45 miles north of Priest River, Idaho, which the Great Northern did a lot in that area going into from Sandpoint to Spokane. And I have also 3-rail, lots of Great Northern, and I'm in a position where I'd like to sell some of it, and nearly all of it's brand new. I have a UP Big Boy that's on display but never been run.
Hello.
Jordan, what bridge is that behind you?
It's over the Tie Creek. You know, it was part of the switchbacks through the Cascades during the early 1900s.
That has to be real close to the Horseshoe Tunnel.
Yes, actually, would have looked right into it.
Both rails right there, and you're not very far. Just a little bit, I guess, would be to the east would be the snow sheds.
Yes, and I have a number of scratch-built snow sheds on the layout as well.
Beautiful.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I hiked up to one entrance to the Horseshoe Tunnel several years ago, quite a few years ago now. Found one end, but could never find the other end.
So back in 2005, my wife and I actually went out to Washington State. We're in Wisconsin. And so we went out and actually hiked on the Old Goat Trail, which follows that line up to the Horseshoe Tunnel. And
but you can't get across Martins Creek.
No,
Very
not
easy.
anymore. No, not anymore. So
we did it. I was young, but that's true.
So we took a lot of photographs, and a lot of the background images on my layout are actually from photographs I took of the area while we were hiking up there. Yeah.
Great. It's a beautiful bridge. Fucking nigger.
Well, Mr. Finnegan, you got a great picture behind you there, that big locomotive. And you're up in Lisle, Illinois, so you're at least in the same state I'm in.
Yeah, that picture was taken about 3:20 a.m.
Fucking niggers.
in West Chicago. And I have pictures of the other side too. The guard came over that night. It was in the station. Guard came over and took pictures from the other side for me. But I think this one turned out the best.
It's a beauty.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Is that a Challenger?
Oh, that's 4014.
That's the big boy.
That's the big one.
That's the big boy. Okay.
That's the big boy. Yeah.
Well, Don, I just want to say, for 3-Rail GN, you're going to feel very at home tonight because our main presenter for the evening is going to talk about his O-scale 3-rail layout.
Right.
Yes, I have read John's articles in Classic Toy Trains, and that's what piqued my interest to join the Zoom.
Very good. I'm finally glad to be on here so many people that know how many rails are on a model railroad, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Everybody else is missing one.
I'll tell you one thing. Here in Indiana, I belong with a great group of people, not only Great Northern people, but NMRA people. And one of our I know some people don't want to join the NMRA because they think, well, God, if you're a three railer, they'll make fun of you or whatever. We spend our time here in central Indiana harassing each other about having a scale other differently than what we have. And it's fun. It's just one big ongoing joke is what it is. We don't care. I appreciate the guys here because we're all model railroaders and we don't care what the scale of it is,
Takes a lot of room for three rail.
A little bit less room than two rail because, and that's the reason why I did go with three rail, because even the biggest engines can get around a 6-foot curve, and you need a 10-foot curve for the bigger stuff in two rail because they have the fixed pilots and the KD couplers, and with the three rail stuff, our couplers are on the trucks which swing around the curve so we can get around a tighter area. Well, it's 9 o'clock, so I would like to officially welcome everyone to the Great Northern Railway Historical Society Zoom, and I would like to thank the president of the Great Northern Railway, Mac McCullough, for allowing Jacob Wright, who is the co-host of this event, for allowing us to do this. This is actually our 4th Zoom. The 3rd one, not so much of this kind of an extension of it, but we started our first one with 6 people. And tonight, the last I looked down here, oh my gosh, we have 49 people on here tonight. That's wonderful. Looking around, I can see some of the different places that you folks are at from around. So, and I see lots of the folks from here in Indiana too. So I want to welcome everyone to this event. And I'm going to jump right into this tonight because we've got quite a few slides of the layout, and we're going to be talking about historical aspects and modeling aspects and different comments. This is very, very informal. So if anyone has any question, I welcome you to slow me down because I play in a band too. I heard the band talking and my wife is always after me. I'm always speeding the beat up all the time. So I'll be going through this because there are 50 slides and I'd like to get through it, and I don't want to I hope no one goes to sleep. So if I can get on here and Zoom. Tom, can you put me on, please? All right, let me get slideshow. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. This is my welcome again to the Great Northern tonight. This is going to be kind of we were inspired to do our railroad, my wife and I. We love Glacier National Park, and we've been to the area that we model many, many times. And so we don't miss it so much. We have replicas in our basement. When we were building the layout, a lot of the stuff that we model is actually there in real life, and we scratch build a lot of things to make replicas in O scale. So that's what you're going to see tonight. For those that don't know where Marias Pass is, the easiest way to explain it in layman's terms is it's basically the southern border of Glacier National Park. The reality is it runs from the Two Medicine River near East Glacier, Montana, around Glacier Park's border and ends in Bad Rock Canyon, which is just outside of Columbia Falls, if anyone is familiar with that, northwest corner of Montana. This area includes the lowest crossing of a Class 1 railroad in the United States by a Class 1 railroad, the Great Northern Railroad. Summit is 5,213 feet, and that is why it is still to this day the most profitable line going through there in the United States. A lot less height, they can get through with a lot less fuel. Marias Pass was found and discovered, I guess you could say. James J. Hill is on the left. He is the creator of the Great Northern Railroad. And I won't launch into a lot about Mr. Hill tonight because there's a complete documentary that's about 8 hours long on him on DVD that is excellent. I would recommend anyone to get that. The gentleman on the right is John Frank Stevens. He is actually the person that almost froze to death when he discovered Marias Pass on the night of December the 11th, in the early 1890s when he discovered it. His Indian guide was going up the mountain with him, and he was about halfway there, and it was so bad the Indian guide refused to go any farther with him, and he was on the he was going up the west side of the pass because the Blackfeet tribe that is there to this day, back in those days, was very, very hostile and unfriendly, and everyone was terrified of them. So he figured by going up there in the wintertime, they wouldn't be out freezing to death either. And he was right. And he survived. The birth of Glacier Park often attributed to James J. Hill, and James J. Hill couldn't care anything less about nature. He said, was quoted as saying, "We do not care enough for Rocky Mountain scenery to spend a large sum of money developing it." It was actually his son, Louis Hill, that was responsible, along with George Bird Grinnell. They worked with a lot of people for many years. Finally, Glacier National Park was designated as a national park in 1910. The Glacier Line. In our home in Avon, Indiana, in the basement, you can basically see a layout. It's basically a single line track with long passing sidings. There's reverse loops at each end. It covers the entire basement. And here's the entry going down our stairs, and we have lots of artifacts from Glacier Park. Many of what those Native American portraits that you see, they're pretty valuable and collectible. Those were actually, a lot of what you can see were from 1940 from the Public Relations Department. We even have an original mailer, and they are very real.
Can they see me if I walk back there?
More. And this is just going down the stairs again. That's a real railroad lantern from Great Northern, a couple of bags, just basic stuff in the stairwell. When you get into our basement, I've been asked, we've been on a couple of professional videos in many magazines, and a lot of the editors have asked me, well, give us a photo of the Glacier Line. It's impossible because it fills a basement. What you're seeing with those photographs right there is I went to every corner of the basement and took a photograph diagonally across it. So you can say it encompasses quite a bit of space. What's really kind of nice, though, is in the middle of the room, the top photos, the one on the right, you can see some portable layouts there. We take them to shows here. One's an Ingle Nook and one's a saver. There's a pool table underneath of there. It was because of that entire pool table I did not bury the entire basement railroad. And that was a good accident, because when we have operating sessions or we have tour groups come down here, there's plenty of room for people to stand back and take pictures and admire the layout. It's just not a one-way cavern trying to get past each other. There's actual space, so that makes it kind of nice. This is my crew, which I'm very happy and proud to have these people. A lot of them have their own railroads at home, and we all love railroads very much. And we have people in our group here that are just into the toy train thing and enjoy the simple stuff. And then we have some pretty serious model railroaders here. 4 of these people in this picture are going to be, I am a master model railroader. Three other ones standing in the back row on the very far right is Bob Perry. He's very close to becoming an MMR. And the gentleman next to him with the beard and the darker hair, Phil Burnside, he has turned in his paperwork, so he'll become official before long. And then seated my wife Connie there in the front row. She'll start turning her paperwork in May. So we've got a good group of master model railroaders right here in Avon, Indiana. This is me up in Northern Illinois on Hustle Muscle. And this is going to be the start of the tour when we'll show you how we were inspired to create a lot of scenery. And before we start, I will tell you this: I can't paint a stick figure. So all of these awesome backdrops you're going to see were hand painted by Connie. People ask me all the time, say, how did you do your backdrops? I said, I married Connie. It was a plan. And I'm kidding, I didn't know. This first one you see here, the models are on the right, reality's on the left. This is the Sheep Creek Trestle outside of Essex, Montana. It was so popular for people to stop and look at this area. They finally got smart a few years ago and built a parking lot because they were tired of people stopping on Highway 2 and messing up the traffic. So it's easy to stop there, get a lot of good photos right now. And we're really, we are really proud of the outcome of this bridge because in Trains Magazine, for those of you who may not know, Trains Magazine is an actual prototype magazine, and they go out and photograph real trains. They actually went out and took a picture of the Sheep Creek Trestle in one of their magazines and posted it, but they named the bridge as the Goat Lick Bridge. Which is the name for that. The only place there's a Goat Lick Bridge anywhere is in our basement, and they got them confused. So that made us feel pretty good. Just another shot. And we have a lot of rolling stock on the Glacier Line, so these pictures we were able to give you a pretty good idea of. You can see the similarities there on the photographs. This is a spectacular area too. It's not only is it beautiful, it's got a railroad, and so I really enjoy being there. Up here in Marias Pass. And for those of you who may not know, it's no longer there. That station is at Essex, Montana, across the tracks from where the Isaac Walton Inn is. And that's been gone since 1991. The first time I was ever actually there was 1995. I missed the station, but the Isaac Walton Inn, it used to have pictures from floor to the ceiling and all kinds of railroad things. Very, very recently, a new corporation has bought it and they auctioned off a bunch of stuff. And I don't know what's there and what's not anymore. We'll be going back next year, and I hope it's not as bad as I think it's going to be.
Jackie.
This picture here is from a long time ago. What you're looking at on the left, that is a picture that had to be taken sometime around 1912 to 1914. That is an open top observation car of the Great Northern Railroad. They were made from an 1887 baggage car of Great Northern. The idea was so people, when they're going through Glacier Park, you know, they could see all the spectacular views. And the first time I ever saw a picture of that, I thought to myself, I know I'm a three-railer, and you can see the three rails in the picture on the right. And they're never going to build anything like this in three rail. And Connie actually built her own as well. But we both constructed these open top observation cars, and you're looking at 561 pieces and about 3 months worth of work to get a good, pretty replication of that car. And we're really proud of those cars. Lots of snow sheds up in Marias Pass. They're just lined with it. Of course, Amtrak's running nowadays, and they still call the train the Empire Builder. We've ridden out there several times. If you've never ridden a train before, I would definitely recommend it. Especially this is one of the most scenic journeys in America across the Great Northern. The Isaac Walton Inn I talked about was used to house railroad crews. The construction started in 1937. It was finally finished in 1939, and actually it was a subsidiary of the Great Northern Railway that built it. It was the Addison Miller Company. And that building passed through many hands, many years through contracts, and even into the 1990s. They referred to the Isaac Walton Inn as the Lost Inn or the In Between, because not many people knew about it. Originally, there was a vision for it to be the central entrance to Glacier Park in the early years. And when World War II came along, which is the same period they're building this that scuttled those plans, and it's never happened. Here recently, though, unfortunately, too many people have discovered the inn and Glacier National Park, and now it's really starting to become overrun up there, which is kind of sad. It used to be real peaceful, but I guess the good news is financially, that's going to be there a lot for a long time, hopefully. The engine out there, the 441, that's probably only been there last 10 years. And there's actually a gentleman on this call, on this Zoom call, that actually has stayed in that engine at the Isaac Walton Inn. I'm very jealous. When we go out there, we've stayed at the inn, but we actually rent, and I don't have a photo of it, the Withrow house. Ray and Maud Withrow were the general store owners out there in 1940. And now the house is owned by the people that own the inn, and it's rented out, and we stay there during the summer for like a week at a time. But it'd be a real adventure to go out there and stay in the engine. On the right, on the model, my wife, she hand painted all the backdrops, including that picture of the Isaac Walton Inn. The reason it's painted the way that it is, someone asked me, you know, is that in scale? If that was in scale on this layout, it would be 32 inches long and about 18 or 19 inches high, which would not make the scene look very good. So it's kind of in the distant background there, but it definitely gives you an idea of what it looked like. And here recently, very recently, the Great Northern Railway Historical Society, they actually have a laserwood kit of the Isaac Walton Inn, and it is an HO scale, and it's magnificent. It's about $169, and it's a replica of the inn. It's really beautiful. I'm fighting trying not to get it. The Isaac Walton Inn is on the National Historical Society, National Register of Historical Places as well. This is a sign outside of it. And on the Glacier Line, what Connie and I have done is take pictures of the actual historical signs, and they are on the fascia in front of the model objects on the Glacier Line. What you're seeing there is at the top of the world at Summit, Montana. There are 3 statues up there off Highway 2. And actually, these were not originally built here. The one on the right, kind of difficult to tell from the picture, that is John Frank Stevens. For discovering the past, they put the statue up there in 1925. The big statue in the middle is a monument to Theodore Roosevelt, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute here. And the very small rock on the left, I'm sorry, it is for a gentleman named William Slippery Bill Morrison, who is one of the most colorful characters in the history of northern Montana and the Great Northern Railroad. And I'll say a little bit more about him in a few more slides, but those statues are still there to this day. You can pull right off of Highway 2 and see them. The first time Connie and I ever went up there to see them, the snow was to the waistline of Stevens. So it was difficult to get close that first time. Slippery Bill Morrison, he actually claimed to have squatters' rights at the land of at the summit. And the government had many talk with him about that area, and he agreed to cede the land to them as long as they would do a couple of things. And one was build a monument to Theodore Roosevelt. He idolized Roosevelt. And he also had the stipulation that there no concessions, hamburger stands, as he called them, would be built on any of this property during his lifetime. He would be spinning in his grave if he knew what was going on up there right now. They even have they have helicopter rides now, zip lines, and when we were there in '95, none of that stuff was there. But it was really rustic. It's kind of sad. Okay, William Slippery Bill. He's called Slippery Bill because how he got his name dates back a long time when he lived in McCarthyville, Montana, which is a little fly-by-night western town full of gambling and prostitutes that was all there. And staying alive for anyone in that town was a major accomplishment, especially a card shark like Bill. One night he was the big winner in the night, and he'd left there to go home to his cabin, and they made an attempt to rob him, and they hit him over the head, and he recovered from it, but he went back to the saloon the next morning and got his money out of the keg he was sitting in, and he retreated home in the daylight with his shotgun. So he was prepared. And again, this Theodore Roosevelt Monument built because of him, and this was built in 1931, about 6 years after the Stevens statue. And here's a close-up of the Stevens statue. And again, the night he found it, he actually made it all the way up there, obviously, and he paced back and forth to not freeze to death, and then descended in the morning time. Oh, I did say, yeah. This is the same John Frank Stevens of the Panama Canal fame. James J. Hill had him under his employ for the railroad, and actually had him under contract, and they had to make a deal with Hill to get Stevens to the Panama Canal. This little statue, it's many, many miles east of the summit. This is just outside of Browning, Montana, on the Blackfeet Reservation. And this little site is called Camp Disappointment. Camp Disappointment actually has to do with Lewis and Clark, and they were tracing the Jefferson Louisiana Purchase, and they were looking through the area, and they were hoping that the river flowed into Canada to open up the fur trade. And they were disappointed when they discovered that the river flows east and west of that point. And it was actually Meriwether Lewis. He broke off with a band of 10 men from the big expedition party when they were scouting this particular area. And the second story to that is, there's the sign explaining what I just said, but they don't mention on that sign the biggest event that happened there, which was the only armed conflict of the entire Lewis and Clark expedition. Captain Lewis actually, with his men, they ran into a group of Blackfeet, and the Blackfeet were making nice with them, and they all went to bed that night, and some men woke up in the middle of the night discovering the Blackfeet trying to steal their guns and their horses, and there was a melee, and 2 of the Blackfeet were shot and killed. And after that happened, Captain Lewis and his men retreated as swiftly as they could to the main party, because they knew the tribe would be coming to extract revenge on them. And this incident became known as the Two Medicine Fight. This next photo, this is a wooden trestle that's outside of Essex, Montana, was there in 1900. And Great Northern quickly discovered these wooden trestles were constant problems, the threat of fire, even many times the wind was blowing so hard up there that it was shaking so bad the trains couldn't cross them. So in the early 1900s, they were all replaced with steel bridges, but this one actually was never replaced. The story is it was buried in a gigantic fill, and to this day, if you look down, there's a gigantic concrete culvert that sticks out both sides of Essex Creek under this area where the creek flows through it. And word is that trestle was never removed from underneath. I don't know, and I'm not going to start digging. This is the Blacktail Station. It was high up in the mountain too, higher up than Essex. Maintenance of way people, stayed in these places, because trying to maintain railroad tracks in a mountain setting requires a lot of workmen. So this was one of the many stations that were there at that time. And since this station is long gone, now it's kind of just sitting in the background, abandoned on the Glacier Line. This is a Great Northern section house. These were scattered all over the lines from Minnesota all the way through the state of Washington. And to this day, there's actually a couple of them that are really out in Essex, Montana. One used to be rented out. The other one, I'm understanding that someone actually bought the home. I'm not sure, but it is there in Essex, Montana. They were made in slightly different styles. But Connie and I, we scratch built this one that's on the right, and it is to O scale. And because we're members of the Great Northern Railway Historical Society, we have all the plans, drawings, so we have all the correct measurements and everything. And we were able to construct this house on the right, and we're really proud of it because it bears a great similarity to reality. Same thing, the Great Northern had a lot of fire hose houses in their yards and different facilities. And I don't know why, but most of these fire hose houses were square. But the ones at Essex, there were two at Essex, and they both were in the shape of a pentagon. So I ended up scratch building that little fire hose house. There doesn't look like there's much there, but I actually was crazy enough to build the interior framing in that. And you're looking at probably close to 100 scratch built pieces in that little fire hose house there. This station is something we're really proud of. This just appeared in the National Model Railroad Association's national magazine. This is way too long of a story to tell, but the condensed version is this. A gentleman named Ronald Smith, who lived in Brownsburg, Indiana, not an NMRA person, or he was a lone wolf modeler. He and his wife, Bonnie, they loved Glacier Park. They were even campground managers up there in the early 1960s. Bonnie was a professional photographer, and she took pictures a lot of the buildings. Well, she took pictures of the Glacier Park station. And Ronald, sometime in the 2000s, not exactly sure when, he scratch built that station. And when we received the station, there was no deck on it. There are a lot of the wood supports, the framing of the wood supports, they were missing. The windows were open. There was no coverings in the windows. There was no lighting. There was no glass in the windows, and there was no way to get in the building. And so between Bob Perry, who's on this phone call, he cut out sections of the bottom of the building and it's installed LED lighting, put in windows. He even put controls into where you could regulate the intensity of the lighting in the individual rooms and the exterior of the building. And Connie and I built the deck and added the wood supports, and we added probably about 11 to 1,200 boards in there to get that station. Bob also 3D printed the flower pots you see hanging around the station there. And Connie was able to get some flowers and get them in there and hang them up. And they hang them around the station just like that in the spring, all the time out there at East Glacier, Montana. But that building picture does not do it justice. It's just he did just a magnificent piece of work, and we're just absolutely elated to have it on the Glacier Line.
He even built the baggage cart, which I reassembled.
Yeah, he even built the baggage cart, which you can see at the very front of the scene, right behind that post nearest to the front of the picture. He scratch built that too. His wife said there are like 300 individual shingles on that roof. He cut them out, and she said it took him about 3 weeks to put them on the building. It's magnificent. Whitefish Depot, Amtrak stops there to this day, and this is a photo that I was just messing around taking one day. Of course, the real one's on the left. That is a photo in the background. That is in our lower yards, an area that's not supposed to be scenic on the Glacier Line, but every day it becomes more and more scenic, and I put it in the background and was just messing around one day and took that picture. It's a pretty good illusion because I had a couple of people write me. And for those of you who aren't there and don't know, when you are on this side of the end that these cars are on, it's nothing but railroad tracks, and you can't possibly be out there taking pictures unless maybe you're flying a drone. And I had a couple of people writing me and asking me, they said, how did you get that picture? That picture's on the Glacier Line. And again, there is the National Register of Historic Places there at the Whitefish Depot. And actually, the Stumptown, Whitefish was originally called Stumptown. The area was full of trees, and they cut the trees down, but the stumps were sticking up in the roads all over the town, hence the name of the town being Stumptown. But it is at the depot, and they have all kinds of historical information about the area. If you're into that kind of thing, it's a do not miss that. And I just wanted to show some random pictures around the Glacier Line. Many of our members, that's a friend of ours, Stacy. I thought it was kind of neat running up the hill, smoking away. And you got to remember, a lot of people are surprised when they come down here. They lose sight of the fact this is a 3-rail layout, because a lot of people out there still think the only place a 3-rail train belongs is under a Christmas tree. And a lot of the pictures you can't tell it's a 3-rail layout. You have to really look for it. Here I am running in front of our Walton. There's the Isaac Walton Inn. I'm doing real good. Here's Connie in that same area, that running up. That's a scratch-built trestle. I was always jealous and envious of all the guys I saw that had these on their layouts, and I was hoping the day would come that I'd actually get to build one, and I did. I didn't do it great, but I'm still proud of the outcome of it. It's a 21 bent trestle, and it's 7 feet long. Some of our crew there, Phil Burnside on the right, and behind, next to him, Connie, and Bob Perry right there. Brian Wetzel, he's on this phone, Whitesell, he's on this phone call too. And then the background, a good friend of mine, Greg Burks. This is just a handful of people that come and run the Glacier Line. Bob Perry, he was our dispatcher that night. Here's Connie coming through a snow shed. We've increased a lot of our trees on the layout too. That's older. Yeah, I needed a lot more trees in those days. And then these are just various shots of the layout. My son's on the lower right there, and lady up on the left is Shelley. She's a good friend of mine. And she didn't know anything about trains. She didn't know what to think about it when she saw this down here. And that is the end. That is the Glacier Line. And just about a week ago, to a complete surprise to me, the OGR people, they actually came here and shot a video of the Glacier Line in 2016, and it was on DVD for sale for people at home. They put a copy of it free on the web for everyone now. So I've shared it all over the place on the web and YouTube, and it's actually on the Glacier Line's Facebook channel. So if you want to see a complete video of the Glacier Line, you can do that now. Just look on Facebook for the Glacier Line channel and look for that video, and you can play it through. And thank you. That's all I have. And boy, did I roll through that.
Had a chance years ago. I took the Empire Builder up to Glacier National Park, got off there at that depot, and then spent the night in the inn behind it. And although the rooms were primitive, but the interior of the lobby was unbelievable. You actually have to see it to appreciate it. It's just unlike anything I've ever seen. So that was some treat for me.
When were you there?
Oh my. Probably at least 10, 15 years ago.
I was there for the 2010 100-year anniversary of the park.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was the Historical Society had their meeting there. We were the last group after they closed the park at the end of August. They had a weekend for the red bus drivers. They had a weekend, I believe, for all the past employees. And then we were the last group, the Historical Society. And the day we left, there were snow flurries at the end of August, early September.
I've got a model of the red bus that ran there in Glacier National Park. I managed to find that online a couple years ago, and I bought that sucker. So that's not HO. It's not HO scale, but it's still cool to have it on the
It's
shelf.
neat. That's neat.
Yeah.
We actually have that too. We actually bought one of the red jammer buses actually at the park. It was in one of the gift shops, and it was perfect for our layout. But also, we were there in 2010, attended some of the Historic Society things, and the inn itself, the rooms are not primitive anymore, I hear. And that was just a dormitory for railroad men crews that were, working on the railroad. That's
Right, right.
So you were just a crew member there.
Yeah, now they have the sprinkler systems in, and like you said, it's not primitive anymore, but that's a magnificent lobby with those tall posts, those trees. It's absolutely amazing.
Looks like somebody brought the.
You're talking about the East Glacier Lodge now. I think.
Correct.
I thought you were talking about the East Glacier Lodge. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
It is. And my understanding is they pulled all the flowers up the last day as we were waiting for the Empire Builder to take us back. And they pulled all the flowers up between the walkway between the station and the lodge.
Yes.
And then they also mentioned that they'll take all the furniture to Whitefish and put it in storage in a warehouse. And it'll be just have a family that lives there during the winter just to make sure it's just all stays together.
Yeah.
John, what do you use for power control system on your layout?
They got that constructed fairly quick back. I think it was in the early 1911, 12, because James J. Hill actually had his 80th birthday party out there. I think it was 1912 was when that.
Really? That's neat.
John, what do you use for power and control systems on your layout?
Ours is exclusively DCS, and I have 2 MTHZ 4000 transformers. They exclusively control the power on the layout for the engines. For all the building lighting and switches and turntables, we have separate transformers. There's a total of seven transformers that power the Glacier Line. That may be a little overkill, but it's less stress on the transformers, and it will make them last a lot longer.
John, that wooden trestle that got filled in, that was a common practice for the railroads. They would just, when they wanted to make a fill like that, they just filled in, left the trestle in place because they could run hopper cars full of rock and dirt and everything over the top of the trestle and just dump it.
Oh, I didn't know why. I didn't know it was a common thing, but and I'm sure the answer they did it anyway, because it's cheaper. It's probably cheaper to do that than to rip it out and get it,
Well, and they would just
Joel is right. That was the absolute stock standard way to do it. You just build the trestle and fill around it, and then you had a fill.
Wow.
I know that the GN actually did it multiple times on Stevens Pass as well, to reinforce some of their trestles. And they would just run trains on top of it, dump whatever ballast or rock they were using for the fill over the side of the bridge, and then they would just repeat that until they had a fill.
That's correct.
Has anybody else been out there to Glacier Park that's on the call?
What did you ask?
If anyone on this Zoom has been to Glacier Park.
Yes, several times.
And my wife and I were there in 2010 for the convention, and that was very, very well done convention.
I've got the video.
We left, it was snowing, and 2 days later, I think they had a foot of snow there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we were there in 2010 too. It was a wonderful time.
Yes.
In Montana, a foot of snow is just a dusting.
Yeah, my wife and I actually made that part of our honeymoon 30 years ago.
I envy you guys that went out there in 2010. Chief Earl Old Person, who was the chief of the Blackfeet tribe for Lord knows how many years. He actually came out and spoke at the convention, and you can get that video and see it, but it's just telling a little bit about the history of the Blackfeet and the hardships they endured and some of the other stuff. But, you know, to be able to meet him a couple of times, I went into Browning and I was talking to people, and I would have loved to have had the opportunity because he actually met lots of congressmen and presidents and the whole bit. He was a very peaceful chief and not taking a shot at the Blackfeet, but that is not the history of the tribe. So
I think he told us that he'd met every president from Truman forward at that time.
John Stevens also discovered Stevens Pass, and the original line went over the top of Stevens Pass and switched back and forth down to Wellington. And in 1900, they completed the first Cascade Tunnel. And that young man that was speaking a minute ago about the ballast going around the bridges, they did the same thing when they made the 8-mile tunnel on the West Portal, and they raised the grade 30 feet and covered the hot springs, Scenic Hot Springs Hotel, which is where some of the people from the Wellington disaster made it to Windy Mountain and then slid down the mountain.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the only thing we all have in common is the soil's backing.
I'm really excited this year. The Great Northern Railway Historical Society is having their convention in Everett, Washington. And I've led a very, very sheltered life. And the farthest west I have ever been has been Whitefish, Montana, kind of north and west. So I'm real excited about getting out to Everett and seeing the things around there. And then we're going to be driving to Glacier Park after the convention's over. But I'm looking forward to seeing the King Street Station and taking in some of the history in that part of the country, because I have never been anywhere near it. I've just lived it through, Great Northern Video, Great Northern Railway Historical Society reference sheets. All the society does a wonderful job of, sharing information. It really is a great historical society. I've told a lot of people about it, and they're just, all the conventions and the benefits of it. If you're a modeler and you want to model things, they have something called modelers pages they come out with with the additions, and it just helps you build Great Northern structure stations because you have all the access to it. And they also have a multitude of online resources as well. I've been basically a member of the society since 1993, and it's been going on since like 1973. It started out as the Fraternal Order of Empire Builders.
Correct.
Was the nickname of James J. Hill.
My father-in-law used to be on the Cascade Division, and he ran electrics from Seattle King Street Station, Skykomish. He ran the electrics from Skykomish to Appleyard in Wenatchee. Wow. But he'd run out of Seattle with a steam engine and then change to the electrics at Skykomish. But if you're coming out west for the convention and you're coming by car, take some time to go over Stevens Pass. You can go down to the area which was Wellington Station and walk through the snow sheds that they made after the disaster.
Is the Iron Goat Trail, does it pass through Wellington?
Yes,
it does.
Parking lot right there. And as far as I know right now, you can still hike through the original tunnel. I hiked through it in '65, and shortly after that, the University of Washington put in a laser to predict earthquakes over the fault line that goes over Cascade, over the summit of Stevens Pass. And they had it lined up about a mile apart, the sender and the receiver, so that they could check the distance that thing moved. But then they ended up taking that out, probably in the late 70s, early 80s.
So Jim, where are you located?
I'm located at Nordman, Idaho, which is about 40 miles north of Priest River, Idaho. And I have a lot of 3-rail. I'm getting old enough now that I've got to divest myself of some of my stuff. I have an Empire Builder with 4 engines that has 2 A units and 2 B units. It's never been run because I've never been able to get the electrics hooked up on my setup. And I have a brand new UP Big Boy. I've got 10 cars for the Empire Builder. So if anybody's interested, I'd certainly be willing to talk to you. I've got a horn off of, and I don't know the number. I'd love to get the number of the snowblower, but it was a Great Northern steam-driven snowblower that came into an area next to where I worked. They cut it up for scrap. But before they cut it up for scrap, I managed to get one of the 2 headlights and the horn. The horn is solid brass. It weighs about 30 pounds.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It's beautiful. I mean, the horn, I blow it every New Year's Eve. And it echoes down through the canyons here. I live at Priest Lake, Idaho. So if you're coming out west, I'm not sure your name, gentleman that put on the show, and that was an excellent showing.
Thanks.
But you'd enjoy North Idaho, Sandpoint, and Priest Lake, Ponderay Lake, Highway 2 back through Clark Fork, Whitefish, all the area that the Great Northern ran and still does. I mean, it's still a main line.
You're going to go out to Everett, John. You might want, it's only a little over an hour from Everett to Skykomish, which is a really interesting stop on the Great Northern. Right. You know, I think that was the spot where they changed over to electric when they went to run through the tunnel for the longest amount of time. And that's really that's an interesting little stop if you get a chance to go by there. I'm not sure how you're going to get from Everett back to home. You might be flying, but if you're driving, it's a nice little detour.
We're flying to Seattle, and then we've got a car, and we're driving, you know, in that area all the way to Glacier Park, then down to Billings, Montana. Because long story short, our son was born in Billings, Montana back in the early 1990s, and we're going to fly home from there. So it's going to be quite a little excursion for us. I don't know what they're doing at the convention, how much traveling around. I still think we're in the early phases of the planning for that. I don't know details yet, but I'm hoping they're going to get around. I assume they're going to get, you know, to Seattle, and I don't know if they're going to make it to Sky. Is it Skykomish? That's right, isn't it?
Skykomish.
Skykomish. Thank you. Thank you.
Got to be a Native American.
Well, I tell you what, the whole area of the country up there in Washington is just Indian names one after the other.
Yeah.
John, if you're gonna drive from Everett to Glacier Park, you're probably gonna go right through Skykomish because you'll probably be traveling to
Highway 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Highway 2 is like Route 66, only the northern part of the United States.
This past summer,
Nice one, Joel.
my wife and I took a vacation, and we drove up to Minneapolis from Danville, Indiana. Then we started picking up Route 2 through Fargo and straight across the upper part of the United States, just traveled to every route. We took US 2 all the way to Spokane, and then we took it all the way over to Seattle and saw King Street Station. And I found Seattle to be kind of a nightmare to try to maneuver around in a car.
Oh, yeah.
It's not very nice now at all because there's so much indigent population and it's very hostile.
John?
Yes.
John, this is Mac. I grew up in Wenatchee. And when you go from Wenatchee to Spokane, you want to get off of Highway 2 and take, I think it's Washington 20, goes through Quincy. And that road follows the railroad pretty well till you get within about 20 miles of Spokane, and then you'd
That's
have
Washington.
to see the railroad.
That's Washington 28, Highway 28.
28? Okay.
Yes,
I have that.
Highway 20 goes over the North Cascade Highway, which is also beautiful.
You're right. It is. 20 is the North Cascades.
I've
But
heard
anyway,
how.
don't stay
I've
on
heard
US 2 when you leave Wenatchee is the point.
Right. No, you want to go 28 and go up through Quincy and Ephrata. I think it goes through, might go through Odessa. I'm not positive, but Wilson Creek, and then it comes into Spokane. You miss it for a ways because the railroad is to the south of the main highway a ways.
John, are you going to hike the Iron Goat Trail?
I don't know how much time we're going to have, but I'd like to do some of it.
Okay, I think you have to get when I did this back in 15 years or so ago, you have to get a pass from, I don't know if it's in the National Forest or State Park Service or somebody to, I think, to park up there. And I've heard the old Cascade Tunnel has caved in on the west side or close to the west side.
So it's the Old Goat Trail, not the Iron Goat. Old Goat.
Old Goat.
And so you can search that on the internet to get the details. But my understanding is the old Cascade Tunnel, not the 8-mile one, but the original one that's higher up, coming out of what was Wellington or Ty. That's collapsed, so you can't go through there. But that's a great place to start if you can hike west from there and go through the old concrete snow shed that's there. It's pretty cool. So
I believe you can go all the way to Scenic if you have the mind to walk that far.
yeah, yep, work up to that one.
If you're close to it, you're down there in the Skycomish area. It's not too far from there to a place called Lake Chelan, Chelan. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
It's
but it
Chelan.
is
Chelan.
Yes. Yeah, it is absolutely spectacular. They've got a lodge right there that you can rent a room that overlooks that lake. It is just, well, of course, the entire Northwest is, the Pacific Northwest is beautiful country. And I would certainly recommend that if you get in the area. It's not too far off the main drag.
And if you get
stuff to see.
If you get into Wenatchee, there's that bridge that crosses the Columbia River there, right outside of Wenatchee. That is like the steel trussel inside of a steel trussel. They had to reinforce by building.
That's right at Rock Island. That's right at Rock Island.
Yep.
And Lake Chelan, if you wanted to go to Stehekin, which is where the lodge is located, that's 55 miles up the lake. And they have a Lady of the Lake tour boat that goes up there and it'll let you off. And beautiful country and not too hard to hook up with the Pacific Crest Trail, which goes from Canada to Mexico.
The question is, does it ever stop raining in Seattle?
Yes. And when it gets hot, it's really hot.
Because I'll tell you, the first thing whenever I mention the word Seattle to anyone, the next thing that comes out is rain.
Yeah.
Hey, I was
anywhere near there.
They don't call it the air for nothing.
I was pretty close to Seattle today, and it stopped raining for a while, and it snowed.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Well, right now we have a real front coming in, and where I'm at is I think 13 degrees right now, and we're supposed to be 18 below tomorrow morning, and there's blizzard conditions in the Cascade Passes. Stevens Pass is closed, and Snoqualmie Pass, which is I-90, is in and out of being open.
Hey, John, when is the convention?
It is September. You would put me on the spot, wouldn't you, Mark?
Sorry.
Let me tell you. No, I got it. Flip the calendar real quick. September. It is September the 14th through the 18th.
All right, thanks.
And I did it without glasses.
Good job.
So,
no glasses.
Jacob, I have a question for you. My wife and I were out there doing some field research, as it were, back in 2005, and we were at a time where we couldn't go to the Lee Pickett Museum. And it's been quite a bit of time here now. It's and I'm kind of wondering, do you know anything about the status of the Lee Pickett Museum?
No, I don't specifically. I live right next to Mount Pickett on Orcas Island, but no, I don't know anything specifically.
Yeah.
Jacob is next door neighbors with Santa Claus, so he doesn't know any of that stuff. He's on the north edge of the world.
Yeah, right.
Several years ago, when they had the convention in Everett, the Seattle group from the GN Society, they ended up getting a train, and we went up to Skykomish, and they took us all around. It was just a really enjoyable couple of days where we got to go around. I don't know if they can do that again or not. But the BN Railroad was very, very accommodating.
I hope the convention, I hope it works out to where they've got like bus tours taking people. I mean, we still have a car and everything, but I would just, the only convention that I had the good fortune of going to was 2015 in St. Paul. And I could sit here all night and tell you all the great things about it, about seeing Jackson Street Roundhouse and the Hill Mansion and the whole bit. I mean, it was in the Union Depot in St. Paul. I mean, it was great. But I hope to have as good as time in Everett, and I hope there are going to be buses that take us around, because I enjoy it a bunch more when I don't have to worry about where the heck I'm going. That somebody knows where they're going.
So I've never been there, but one of the stranger things I can tell you as a baseball fan is that the BNSF Railroad runs right behind the Mariners Park. So since you're going in baseball season, that may actually be one of the sort of nighttime get-togethers, is to go to the park, and you still get to do some rail fanning, because you can actually hear them rolling behind the right field wall.
They don't let them blow their horns anymore.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I was at a Mariners game in the early 1980s. I'd been to Seattle. I just love it there.
Well, at the Mariners ballpark, you're about a stone's throw away from Amtrak's main service facility, which is only like a block to the south. So if you want to see that.
Well, and Interbay is close in there too, up to the north.
Well, Jacob, if they don't have a good plan at the convention, I'm going to depend on you to lease a limousine and drive me all over the place. You got a driver's license yet?
No, not yet. Next year.
Better get one.
Year.
So I also live in Seattle, and I've lived here a long time, and I think it's a pretty good place to be. But for 15 years, I worked right in next to King Street Station. I worked for the transit system for Metro, and right out our window was the south portal to the tunnel that goes underneath Seattle, right by the station. So you can sit there and watch these trains going under the tunnel. They come out on the other side and go up to Interbay. So it's there's a lot to see in town, and I think you'll find from July through August and September, it doesn't rain that much. It's really beautiful. I think you'll really have a good time.
I'm looking forward to it. I've said for years I was praying that they were going to get out near Seattle again, and I said I'm not going to miss it. unfortunately, for many years, I had this thing, and it pains me to use this kind of language on the Zoom. Please forgive me, but I had a job and had to work. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I got rid of that foolishness about like 3 years ago. So, I'm in a position I can do some of this stuff, and I'm very, very grateful I can.
Well, if you're retired and you've got the time, you would really enjoy Olympic National Park or Mount Rainier, which are also very close. And Seattle is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous city, but it's just ended up getting a lot of undesirable attention and a lot of people that take advantage of other folks.
So don't want to miss the chance. Don't want to miss the chance to go to the fish market there in Seattle.
Yeah, she's been everywhere. I've been nowhere.
I love when they're throwing the fish. I want him to see that. It's cool.
I've never seen so much food for sale in one place in my life. It's just amazing.
I think another high point, if you can find a way to come across on a ferry into downtown Seattle, it is the best entrance to a big city that there is, because you come in and the skyline is just spectacular, and you're on that boat, and and Mount Rainier's off to your right, and you can hear the trains down by T-Mobile Park, because that's really all the yards right there. So you can hear all that when you come in on a ferry. It's really, really sweet. You're gonna like it.
Well, and if you wanted to be close to that, you can stay at the Silver Cloud, which is a nice hotel, and it's right there, right by the football field, and across the street is T-Mobile Park.
Jim, are you sure you haven't spent your whole life in that area?
I've spent an awful lot of my time in that area. I hiked a lot of the Stevens Pass area for years. Jim Hill was kind of a hero of mine in a way. And I've spent a lot of time in Seattle. I drove truck for a long time too, around Washington and into California, hauling produce.
Well, I'm gonna second the notion that if you get here, you really should go to Skykomish. I got the pleasure of going there this past November, and it is truly a really cool town.
Skykomish had one of the biggest super cleanup areas, because they used to fuel the Great Northern steam engines with number 5 bunker fuel, and it seeped down into the Skykomish River, and they had to dig up the whole town, literally dig it up down to 20, 30 feet and replace it with good earth. You can look that up on, I can't remember how many hundreds of millions of dollars they spent, but it was a huge thing. I think there's bigger ones now, but that was a big, costly cleanup.
They were doing that when we were there, and they'd moved the depot there, I think, 2 or 3 times, digging up.
They jacked up the whole hotel.
The old hotel, which is also on this historical registry, that hotel is over 100 years old. My wife and I, again, when we did our excursion out there, we took a lot of pictures of the hotel and stuff like that. I've actually reproduced that on my layout as well. So I got Skykomish is on my layout with the rest of the Cascade branch and stuff like that. So it's really a fascinating area. A lot of history there. And I don't know if you guys have ever, if you know about the 1910 avalanche, and there's a book written called The White Cascade. It's a great read. I mean, it's a phenomenal story about how that avalanche affected those people there, and in specifically Wellington, but that same area, Cascade area. I highly recommend it.
Amazing descriptions of how those guys used to manually shovel all the snow so that the trains could go through. They're actually standing level with the top of the locomotive, digging that sucker out.
Amazing.
I mean, just amazing.
And that's the whole thing with the Lee Pickett, because he was kind of like the official photographer for the Great Northern Railway during that time period. And some great photographs.
Yes.
He took tons of pictures in that of the new tunnel, which was new. They opened it in 1929, but he had a lot of pictures from inside. And the story of how they built that tunnel, they had like 6 or 8 phases that they worked. They had a pioneer tunnel that went in halfway. Then they lateraled over to the tunnel that they were working, and then they worked both directions. They had another entrance called Mill Creek Tunnel, and it went from 600 feet above down, and then they worked both directions and put the material into the pioneer tunnel to get it out of there.
Jim, I wish I had your memory. That's
Well,
an amazing.
I spent a lot
amazing.
of time reading and a lot of time hiking, and my wife and I camped over the top of the west entrance of that Cascade Tunnel, and we had the radio, so we knew when the trains were coming, and we'd go out and see them, and it was kind of fun. And you're right by scenic.
Yeah, and I actually have a reproduction of the Mill Creek mine shaft on my layout for that tunnel.
Oh,
Where
really? Yeah, that was quite the thing, the way they did that.
Yeah.
I think they built that tunnel. It was 7.9 miles long, and I think they built it in like 3 years.
3 years they dug that tunnel, 8 miles on grade,
right?
Multiple faces, and when they came through and they actually blasted it through, they were only off by feet. You know.
Yeah, I don't think it was like 9 inches or something. It was really so close, unbelievable. And Lee Pickett took a lot of photographs in that tunnel.
Yeah.
I don't know how you begin to start digging on 2 sides of a tunnel and end up. I mean, I wrote an article about the Flathead Tunnel in Montana, which is second longest of the Cascade, and the way they. I mean, nowadays it wouldn't surprise me with lasers and GPS, and I mean it. But back.
Oh, no. Take a look at the disaster, the Boston Tunnel project. That wasn't anywhere close to the distance that they did through the Cascades. You know, it just phenomenal engineering.
If you get a book, I can't remember his last name offhand, but Lines
Charles
West.
Wood.
Wood. Yep. That's right. Lines
Charles
West.
Wood did Lines West, and then he and his wife did the Great Northern Railway. It's about 2 to 3 times as thick as the first one.
Yeah, Lines
that gives
West,
you a
great resource.
That gives you a lot of information.
What was the second book that you mentioned?
It was a pictorial history of the Great Northern by Charles and Dorothy Wood.
I'm going to get that because he did a lot of books on the West Coast and lighthouses and stuff up and down the Oregon coast.
Yes, yes.
There's another book, if you're interested, called Northwest Disaster. The author is Ruby L. Holt, and that speaks of the Wellington disaster, but also in that same year was a fire it started in Idaho around Wallace or somewhere, and it was one of the largest fires ever in 1910, and it burned for months. And if you've ever heard of Pulaski, there was a Swedish, or I think he was Swedish or Scandinavian somehow. He designed that tool that is still in use today. But the smoke from that fire circled the earth 3 times.
So I was going to say, if you're interested, there's a webcam at Skycomish, which is pretty entertaining, particularly in the wintertime. It's down right now because they lost their electricity due to the storm. But it's, there's these webcams out there that just you can watch the trains go by, and it's interesting to watch seasonally what it looks like now in the winter and then what it looks like in the summer. It's really kind of fun. So there's a real-time webcam in Skycomish that's pretty entertaining.
How do you find that online?
Yeah, it is on, let's see.
It's on Virtual Rail Cam.
Yeah, Virtual Rail Cam.
Virtual Rail, I've never heard of that. Okay.
They have cameras all over the country.
Right. virtual rail cam, and you go down, you'll see Revelstoke, you'll see all of them, and then you get to Skycomish. Currently, it's down because they lost electricity, but it's pretty interesting. And across the tracks, there's actually a group there that has a train that you can ride, a small one. I don't know what gauge it is, but it's like steam that they've made, and you can see they give kids free rides on weekends, and it's pretty cool. And so every once in a while, I notice it on the camera that there they go, just down and around, and you can see them on the other side of the tracks. Pretty entertaining.
What's interesting is it's Skycomish. It's not there anymore, but that Lines West has a lot of pictures of their generating station where they converted the high voltage to lower voltage for those electrics. And they had a dam on the east side of Stevens Pass in the Tumwater Canyon. That's very interesting.
And Skycomish has a famous bear on that rail cam that comes wandering across the railroad crossing there in the middle of town. It's been caught on camera several times.
Well, if you're in Skycomish, there's also the same place that does the train rides. They also have a little museum inside of the old GN Depot. So if you're there and they're open, that is definitely worth a stop.
I want to say this now because I know there's some people starting to fall off of the Zoom right now. This is by far our record Zoom so far. It's really kind of an extension of the third one we've ever done. We had 6, we had 27, and tonight I'm really thrilled to see we peaked at 51 people. So I'm glad we had that many people show up. Our next one, we'll be sending out notifications for it, but we've been shooting for like the last Thursdays of the month. So the next one would be March the 28th. And I think we would do it at the same time based upon the growing number of people we continue to get. I hope this is something we can really build for the Great Northern Railway Historical Society. So some of us nuts that like talking about Great Northern can actually communicate. Everyone's not blessed enough that they can go to all the, conventions because, things like school and work and life, get in the way of, enjoying and doing everything that we want to do. But I really appreciate the Great Northern Railway Historical Society and Mac McCullough for allowing us to do this. And from Tom Carr tonight, he's the web guy. He's on here helping with this tonight. We really appreciate that. It's something we want to do. And I want to thank all you guys for coming on here and attending this tonight. And be sure and, look for the notices for the next one we have. And like I said, tentatively, we're going to say Thursday evening, March the 28th. That's what we've been doing. For those of you not in the society, the Great Northern Railway Historical Society comes out with a publication 4 times a year, which is March, June, September, and December. So what we're trying to do is meet like 2-3 weeks after it comes out in March. So if there's anything in there anyone wants to discuss or whatever, we could possibly even have people that wrote pieces of information in this on the Zoom to answer questions or expound upon what they wrote. We are a work in progress. And again, my co-host Jacob Wright, thank him for helping me out with these things, and I appreciate all you guys. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you for taking the time to organize this. This is my first one. I've been a member of the society for probably 20 years or more, 25 years. But this has been very enjoyable, and it's nice to meet all you gents and ladies.
Yeah, Connie, thank you for inviting us into your home and showing us your layout. It was really great. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's still a work in progress because when you watch the video, if you do watch the video, what cataract is now missing. It's now a switching yard.
Yeah, our small town has disappeared and into a large switching area. So when we have operating sessions, we have more people to accommodate to keep them busy. Well, I have never been as lucky as I have been in my life. We've lived in this house for 18 years. I've done modeling for 50 years, and I have never been fortunate enough to be surrounded with as many model railroaders as I have been. I mean, when I started this layout down here in 2010, I expected it would be me, and me running the layout. And fortunately, we've had lots of people come over and participate and assist us in building the layout and doing lots of things to it. Right now, Bob Perry, who's on this call with me, he is the catalyst for a lot of things, including we're installing a signaling system on the layout for the first time, which I'm really, that will be a lot of work, but that'll be really neat, interesting, fun, and different for me.
Yeah,
I appreciate Bob doing that because it's a lot of effort.
And as the painter of the backdrop, John will tell you, I always say it needs more trees. It needs more trees.
Always.
Greens, and I keep adding, and I got to add some larch in there too. And when they're turning colors, so I've got to do so. It's never done.
No.
Thank you very much for hosting this. This was very kind of you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Thank the society for allowing us to do this, because my only complaint, and I understand, I get it, I do. You know, back in the old days, I mean, even in the NMRA, all they could do was just write letters to each other, and there was one convention and some local people. And nowadays, because of Zoom, and I just really became involved with the Zoom thing, unfortunately, because of COVID, but it's been the bright spot out of it. I'm like, I would love to meet and see other people, the Great Northern Railway Historical Society. And here I'm in the middle of central Indiana, but they're actually, you know, they're an increasing number of people now in the Great Northern Railway Historical Society here. But, you know, to see people on like Jim, you know, from Idaho, there's no way I would have ever had a conversation with him in my life had it not been for the Zoom. Or met Jacob, and Jacob's on the edge of nowhere in North Washington State.
Thanks, Jacob.
I mean, it's just fascinating to hear what's going on in travels and experiences, because, you know, you have contact with people, and I think it's really good for the society. And I hope that in the future they continue it to, you know, to bring us all closer together too. We here in the NMRA in Indiana, we're all together, and we do lots of things, Zooms, lots of the more you can be involved with the group, you know, the more it's going to survive. And it's been a challenge for the society, because, I mean, there's been no Great Northern Railway for 53 or 54 years. And I think this may help us, you know, develop a closer relationship with each other. And then we've got the little outside assistance of the BNSF Railway, because I don't know who it is there, but whoever is deciding what color they're painting their locomotives obviously was a Great Northern fan.
Hey, my name's John Davis, and I live north of Spokane, about 60 miles. And I've been a member of this organization since 1982. And this is the first time I've ever seen any of you people. So this is kind of fun. And I love seeing the B-36 over David Grunman's head.
Yeah, thanks again, John. I've been a member since '92, and I'm in Toledo, Ohio, so I'm an orphan geographically from the rest of you. But any of you get to Toledo, you're more than welcome to see what I've been working on for 27 years. And it's basically the Kalispell division, which you just covered with Glacier. I run from Havre to Whitefish. It's 8 miles of main line. In my basement, the whole basement's covered. So the Historical Society did a layout on a color layout on my layout back around 2012, 2014. If you were a member then and you have the goat, you may have an edition that shows my layout. But anytime you get to Toledo, you're welcome to come over.
Thank you.
Harold, I have hundreds of real photo postcards of the Great Northern. I have a complete set of Pickett's postcards for the Wellington disaster, but in the area you're talking about, I've got many. So if you ever want to email me, I could send you copies of them.
Thank you. Great.
I would email you. Where are you? You said you're 60 miles north of Spokane.
Yeah, I live up near Colville.
Oh, okay. You're on 395 then.
I'm west of there just a ways, yes. In fact, I'm right on that old Spokane Falls and Northern Railroad.
So are you at the bridge that crosses the Columbia?
No. You go south of Colville, hit 231, and then you go west about 15 miles, and I'm out there, out in the middle of nowhere.
I'd like to get your email address if you have it.
You bet. It's Rocketman, ROCKETMAN, and it's a little III at CenturyLink.net. And I used to be a rocket scientist.
I don't have a bionic pen, so I got Rocket Man and then
little III.
ROCKE. Okay, then III
at CenturyLink. .net.
.net. Okay.
And I also have several years in the Dakotas working in missiles out there, and I used to watch the Great Northern go by all the time.
Okay, well, I'm going to try and send you something here real soon.
Okay.
I'd love to get some of your photos of the Wellington disaster.
I've got a really, have one you don't see very often. It's the rescue crew went down and got Stokes litters and put the bodies in Stokes litters and wrapped them up in the blankets. And there's a whole line of those bodies sitting in front of the Wellington station.
I have a video. I don't know if I would be able to copy it, but it was produced by one of the TV stations in Seattle, and it was all of the Wellington disaster.
These are all Pickett photos, though. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. I hiked all over that area, and you could still find pieces of trains down in the ravine going towards the Thai River.
There was a newsletter that came out quite some time ago that showed these fellows going down and picking up the air brakes and everything else from that disaster.
Yeah, well, a lot of that got covered up when they started doing the snow sheds, because that snow shed that goes right out of Wellington along the bank of the mountain there is double track.
Have you been around the Great Northern long enough to remember Bob Norton out of Skycomish?
No, at least not me. I spent a lot of time around Skycomish, but I don't think I knew him.
He's passed away some time ago, but he's the one that got me interested in the Great Northern, and he was also a prolific postcard collector.
Warren Wing was also big on pictures, and I met Warren Wing at one of the conventions, and he was a very interesting person.
Yes, I've met him before, yes.
I'd like to jump in quick here and thank John and Connie and Jacob for hosting this. And I am the managing editor of your publication here, the GOAT and the modelers pages and the reference sheets. And Andrew Klamka is also on here too. He's the layout and photo editor. And we just appreciate the opportunity that John and Connie and Jacob are providing the members. And as John said, this is a great opportunity for folks to get in touch and connect. And that's such an important thing. And, you know, as a publications editor, I'm like you, I sit and operate behind my keyboard and don't get a chance to see and interact unless I'm at conventions or happen to run down to Jackson Street Roundhouse and such. So this is a great opportunity. Thanks everybody for joining in, and thanks John and Jacob for your leadership. And if there's anything that you feel that the GOAT needs, or the modelers pages or reference sheets that you think we need to be working on, you can find my name right inside the front cover here, your GOAT, and give me a call or drop me a line. Let me know. That's what we're here for. We're here for you members. So I'm out. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
And yeah,
thanks, John. Jacob, Connie.
Good night,
Look
all.
forward to meeting some of you folks in Everett.
Yep.
I'll see you there.
Yes.
Thursday, March 28th. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
28th.
Is John Davis still on?
I don't see him.
I don't see him.
They're going away quick.
Any way to get an email address for him?
No, I'd never seen him before tonight.
Okay.
Well, come back on March 28th.
Yep, March 28th.
So he has to come back too. I need to find About the missiles.
It's good to see all your faces, guys.
Yes, it
Thanks-
is.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, Roger.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, Roger.
Hey, Newman, bye.
Bye, Newman. Bye, Bill. Some of the guys we know.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
very
much, John. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. It was very enjoyable.
Bye, John. Bye, Connie. Thanks.